The annual Morrison family dinner felt suffocating in our parents' expansive dining room. My sister Jessica, the celebrated neurosurgeon, held court at one end of the table while I quietly pushed my food around my plate. "Another grant rejection, Sophie?" Dad's voice dripped with disappointment. "Maybe it's time to admit your research is going nowhere." I thought of my lab at Princeton where breakthrough results were just starting to show promise. 3 years of work on targeted cancer therapy, using a revolutionary approach that the major pharmaceuticals had dismissed as impossible. "The lab work is progressing, Dad," I said quietly. "The preliminary results." "Results?" Jessica interrupted with a laugh. "While you're playing with petri dishes, I performed 3 brain surgeries today. Real medicine, real impact." Mom nodded approvingly at her star daughter. "Jessica's department just received another $1 million grant. That's what success looks like." I checked my phone discreetly. A message from my research partner. "Final trials confirmed. 98% effectiveness. Big pharma representatives arriving tomorrow." "Wasting your life in that lab," Dad scoffed, cutting into his steak. "All those degrees, and what do you have to show for it?" I started, but Mom cut me off. "Jessica's on track to be the youngest chief of neurosurgery. Meanwhile, you're still begging for research funding." My phone buzzed again. The pharmaceutical company's preliminary offer. $3 billion for the patent rights. My hands trembled slightly as I read the zeros. "Maybe it's time to consider a real medical career," Dad suggested. "Jessica could help you get a residency position." "I'm close to a breakthrough," I said firmly. "My approach to targeting cancer cells." "Oh honey," Mom sighed. "Everyone's working on cancer research. What makes you think you'll succeed where billion-dollar companies have failed?" The TV hummed quietly in the background, evening news providing white noise to their criticism. Until breaking news in medical science, the anchor's voice cut through the dinner conversation. "A revolutionary cancer treatment breakthrough has pharmaceutical companies in a bidding war." The room fell silent as my name flashed across the screen, alongside headlines announcing the most significant cancer research advancement in decades. "Sources confirm the rights to this groundbreaking therapy have sold for $3 billion, the anchor continued. "Dr. Sophie Morrison's innovative approach has achieved what major pharmaceutical companies called impossible." Mom's wine glass slipped from her trembling hand, spilling red across the white tablecloth. $3 billion. Jessica whispered. "That's impossible," Dad stuttered. "You're still running basic trials." My phone rang, the dean of Princeton's medical school. "Dr. Morrison, the Nobel Committee is requesting a preliminary discussion." I stood slowly, smoothing my simple blouse. "The trials concluded last week. 98% effectiveness in targeting aggressive cancer cells with minimal side effects." I smiled slightly. Not bad for someone wasting her life in a lab. But the pharmaceutical companies said this approach would never work," Jessica protested weakly. "They did," I agreed. "Right before they offered $3 billion for the rights to my impossible research." The TV continued detailing my breakthrough, how it would revolutionize cancer treatment, save millions of lives, transform medical science. My family sat frozen, their dinner growing cold as their assumptions crumbled. "The grant rejections," Mom began, "were from traditionalists who couldn't see past conventional methods," I finished. "Like some people at this table." My phone buzzed continuously now, journalists, pharmaceutical executives, research institutions all demanding interviews. The scientific community that had dismissed my work was suddenly desperate to claim connection to it. "Sweetheart," Dad started, his voice suddenly gentle, "we had no idea." "That was the problem," I cut him off. "You never bothered to understand what I was actually doing. Too busy comparing me to Jessica's real medical career." The doorbell rang. Reporters had already found the house. Through the window I could see news vans pulling up. "I should go," I gathered my things. "The Nobel Committee doesn't like to be kept waiting." "Sophie, wait," Jessica called out. I paused at the dining room door. "You know what the best part is? This treatment will make individual surgeries almost obsolete. Imagine that, one researcher with wasted potential revolutionizing your entire field. The pharmaceutical representatives will be at my lab at 8 a.m., I continued, checking my watch. followed by the NIH director, the Surgeon General, and apparently the president wants a call. Dad's fork clattered to his plate. The president of the United States, yes. I smiled slightly. Turns out cancer breakthroughs get attention at the highest levels. The TV switched to footage of my lab at Princeton, where crowds of reporters were already gathering. The anchor's voice filled the room. Dr. Morrison's revolutionary approach could make traditional cancer treatments obsolete. Early trials show unprecedented success rates. But your funding requests, Mom stammered. The rejected papers were deliberately quiet, I nodded. I learned early not to share breakthroughs with people who'd already decided I was a failure. Jessica's phone buzzed. Probably her hospital administration. The treatment would transform oncology departments worldwide. Her real medicine was about to be revolutionized by her wasteful sister. The Nobel nomination, Dad whispered, finally processing the news. They don't normally consider researchers your age. They make exceptions for people who cure cancer, I replied dryly. Though I suppose that's not as impressive as performing routine surgeries. My phone lit up with another message. The pharmaceutical deal had leaked to Wall Street. Medical stocks were going crazy in after-hours trading. Dr. Morrison? My research assistant's voice came through the phone. The European Medical Board is on line 1. And the Gates Foundation keeps calling about urgent funding opportunities. Tell them I'll call back, I replied. I'm just finishing a family dinner where I was reminded how worthless my research is. Mom's face crumpled. Sophie, we didn't mean. Yes, you did, I cut her off. Every dismissal, every comparison to Jessica, every mockery of my wasted time in the lab. You meant all of it. Through the window, more news vans arrived. The story was spreading faster than expected. The treatment protocol, Jessica said suddenly. It's going to change everything, isn't it? Everything, I confirmed. Including your surgical department's approach to cancer treatment. I'll make sure you get an advance copy of the procedures. Through proper channels, of course. No family favors. The doorbell rang again. More insistent this time. The world wanted to hear from the researcher who'd cracked the cancer code. I should go, I gathered my coat. Unlike some people's work, my research actually affects millions of lives. As I reached the door, Dad called out desperately, "We were wrong." I turned back one final time. Yes, you were. About my potential, about my work, about everything. But don't worry. The Nobel ceremony will have excellent TV coverage. You can watch your failure daughter from home. The sound of my heels clicking on hardwood echoed through the stunned silence as I left them with their cold dinner and shattered assumptions. The next morning, my lab at Princeton was transformed into a media circus. Pharmaceutical executives in expensive suits mingled with reporters, while my research team handled the constant stream of calls from medical institutions worldwide. The preliminary paperwork is ready, Dr. Morrison, my attorney announced, placing a thick contract on my desk. $3 billion with additional royalties on every treatment administered. I glanced at the document that would change modern medicine. 3 years of being dismissed as a dreamer had led to this moment. Dr. Morrison. A reporter called out. How does it feel to revolutionize cancer treatment at just 29? Before I could answer, the lab doors burst open. My family stood there. Mom, Dad, and Jessica. Looking small against the backdrop of international media attention. This is a restricted area. My security team moved forward, but I held up my hand. Let them see, I said quietly. Let them see what wasted time looks like. The lab screens displayed our trial results. 98% effectiveness in eliminating aggressive cancer cells. Beside them, monitors showed our treatment being replicated in major hospitals worldwide. The Nobel Committee is on line 1, my assistant called out. And the WHO director needs your input on global distribution protocols. Your research, Jessica stepped forward, her surgical confidence gone. It's not just a treatment, is it? It's a cure. Among other things, I nodded. The targeted delivery system has applications beyond cancer. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autoimmune conditions. I smiled slightly. But I suppose that's not as impressive as individual surgeries. Dad picked up one of the medical journals on my desk. My research splashed across the cover. All those nights we thought you were wasting time. I was rewriting medical science. I finished. While you were busy praising Jessica's conventional approach, I was making it obsolete. The pharmaceutical executives approached with champagne, eager to celebrate the signing. Mom's eyes widened at their casual mention of billions. The distribution plan, one executive began, but paused at the sight of my family. Oh, I'm sorry. Should we reschedule? No need, I replied coolly. They were just leaving. Unless they'd like to watch me waste more time. Sophie, Mom's voice cracked. We had no idea. That's exactly the problem, I cut her off. You never bothered to understand my work. Too busy planning Jessica's chief of surgery celebration. My phone buzzed. The president's office confirming our afternoon call. Below that, messages from dozens of research institutions begging for collaboration. The treatment protocol, Jessica said suddenly. It'll make most cancer surgeries unnecessary, won't it? Precisely, I confirmed. Targeted molecular therapy instead of invasive procedures. Welcome to the future of medicine, sis. Try to keep up. The lab screens flashed with breaking news. Medical stocks soaring, hospitals worldwide preparing for the new treatment, my name trending globally. Princess, Dad started using his old nickname for me. We were wrong. Save it, I held up my hand. I'm about to sign a $3 billion deal that will save millions of lives. I don't need your validation anymore. The pharmaceutical team approached with the final contracts. Through the lab windows, more media vans arrived, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like modern antennae for a medical revolution. That annual grant you rejected, I addressed Jessica directly. The one you said was wasted on unproven research? It funded the final trials that made this breakthrough possible. She flinched, remembering her role in blocking my hospital funding. Dr. Morrison? My assistant interrupted. The European Medical Association needs your decision on the international patents. I turned back to my work, dismissing my family as easily as they dismissed me. Tell them we're proceeding with universal access. This cure is for everyone, not just those who can afford expensive surgeries. Mom stepped forward desperately. Sophie, please. Please what? I asked coldly. Please forget years of mockery? Please ignore how you undermine my work at every turn? Please pretend you believed in me before the billions. The room fell silent, even the reporters sensing the family drama unfolding. You should go, I said finally. I have a revolution to launch. Unlike some people's work, mine affects more than one patient at a time. As security escorted them out, I called after them, watch the news tonight. You'll see what your failure daughter accomplished while you were busy doubting her. The pharmaceutical executives moved forward with the contracts, their pens gleaming like scalpels in the lab lights. Ready to change the world, Dr. Morrison? One asked. 6 months later, I stood on the stage at Stockholm Concert Hall, accepting the Nobel Prize in Medicine. The iconic medal felt heavy against my black dress as I faced the audience of world leaders, scientists, and medical pioneers. This breakthrough, I addressed the crowd, wasn't just about curing cancer. It was about challenging conventional thinking. About believing in possibilities when others saw only limitations. In the front row, my research team beamed with pride. Behind them, representatives from every major hospital worldwide hung on every word. The treatment had already saved thousands of lives. My phone buzzed discreetly, another update from Princeton. Survival rates up 95% in previously terminal cases. The impossible cure was working better than even I had predicted. Dr. Morrison? The event coordinator whispered. Your family is here. They're asking to see you. I glanced toward the back of the hall. Mom, Dad, and Jessica stood awkwardly in their formal wear, looking out of place among the scientific elite. The press conference first, I replied. Family matters can wait. The global media had gathered in force. Dr. Morrison, how does it feel to be the youngest Nobel laureate in medicine? Less satisfying than saving lives, I answered honestly. The real victory is in the hospital wards, where patients are going home cancer-free. Your treatment has revolutionized oncology, another reporter called out. Traditional surgical approaches are being completely revised. I caught Jessica's flinch in the background. Her surgical department had been transformed by my protocols. Dr. Morrison. A familiar voice, the same reporter who'd blocked my early press releases. Any comment on the pharmaceutical deal reaching $4 billion with royalties? The money is irrelevant, I replied. We're using it to fund research grants for other, impossible, ideas. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the most dismissed researchers. After the press conference, I found my family waiting in the Nobel reception room. They looked different, humbled. Jessica wore a simple dress instead of her usual surgical credentials on display. The numbers from Boston General, Mom said quietly. Your treatment saved 300 patients last month alone. 312, I corrected, including 2 cases Jessica had declared inoperable. My entire approach to medicine was wrong, Jessica admitted. While I was focused on individual surgeries, I was developing a cure that works for everyone, I finished. Funny how wasted time in the lab worked out. Dad stepped forward, the Nobel medal's glow reflecting in his tears. Princess, we were so wrong. About everything. Yes, I agreed simply. You were. My phone buzzed again. The WHO confirming worldwide distribution. Children in developing countries were receiving the same treatment as billionaires in private hospitals. The research foundation, Mom ventured. The one you're starting with the Nobel Prize money. Will fund unconventional research, I nodded. Scientists who think differently. Like I did when everyone said it was impossible. I've been reading your papers, Jessica said. The molecular targeting system, it's brilliant. I never took the time to understand before. Too busy being the successful daughter? I asked pointedly. She flinched but nodded. I deserved that. The foundation needs reviewers, I said after a moment. Scientists who understand both clinical and research perspectives. Interested. Jessica's eyes lit up. You'd let me be part of this? Professional capacity only, I clarified. No family favors. You'll have to prove your worth like everyone else. Thank you, she whispered, for showing me a better way to help people. And us? Mom asked hesitantly. I studied them carefully. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine understanding. Sunday dinners, I said finally. At my lab. You can see what real medical innovation looks like. They nodded eagerly. But first, I added, I want you to meet someone. I led them to a side room where a young girl sat with her parents. One of our first trial patients. 6 months ago she had terminal cancer. Today she was cancer-free. This is Emily, I introduced them. While you were doubting my research, she was proving it could work. Emily smiled brightly. Dr. Morrison saved my life. And now she's helping kids all over the world. My family watched in silence as Emily showed them her latest clean scan results. This, I said quietly, is what wasted time in the lab achieves. Not prestige, not surgery counts, but actual lives saved. We understand now, Dad whispered. My phone buzzed with another message. 10,000 treatments administered worldwide today. 0 failures. I have to go, I gathered my things. The UN Medical Council is waiting. Emily, keep sharing your story. Show the world what's possible. As I reached the door, Jessica called out, Sophie? Thank you. Not just for proving us wrong, but for proving hope right. I paused, looking back at my family, at Emily, at the Nobel medal that validated years of dismissed work.